This happened back in the winter of 2011 when me and my friend were in the forest with a group of grade 8s and grade 7s. Grade 7s and 8s were going inside one of the forest behind in front of our school. We were mainly going there because we were going to play some winter games like Capture the Flag or even Manhunt. Now, my friend and I decided we would go explore more in the forest. Since I'm not going to give my real friend's name for personal reasons, we're just going to call her Emily. Emily was a really nice and sweet girl. You might consider her as a best friend. She and I have been together for as best friends for a long time. At every recess we would hang out, play, and do all kinds of stuff. The grade 8s and 7s were going to go to play Capture the Flag or something like that. So, one day, I brought my snow pants and stuff like that, and my friend Jamie and I were in the bathrooms. We were basically just talking about what we would find in there. My friend said that she brought her digital camera. This was back before we had Samsung phones and iPhones, so this was basically something we decided to get. Now, my friend had said that she and her friends had saw something in the woods one night. I don't even know if that's the case, but it is kind of something. I think you could just say that my friend and I were inside the woods. At least, well, of course you could definitely say that my friend and I, along with our class, were in the woods. We were traveling around the place, mainly just doing our usual thing, when we decided to go ahead of the group one time when they decided to take one path, we decided to take the other. We were mainly falling behind because my friend and I like to chat a lot. Yeah, it wasn't really the best option, but we knew the forest from the back of our head, so it wasn't that big of a deal. My friend Emily and I were walking through the forest, and of course we saw some snow. There are some deers that do like to wander around the area. Sometimes we get raccoons, squirrels, and even wolves occasionally, and sometimes coyotes. Once in a while, you probably won't see this as much as you would think, you would see a bear, but that's not the point though. Emily and I were wandering around the forest when we heard some twigs and branches snapping. I obviously was quite confused with it. So I was just speechless for a moment, and same with Emily. We just were curious, not sure what to do, but we were quite just speechless. We didn't hear what it was, but it came from the furthest part of the woods. Now, of course, we just didn't know any much about what to do in case if we were in a certain situation. But my friend and I were just wondering, but we didn't know who or what it was, and we thought it might have been someone in the woods. But we couldn't find it. We called out for whoever it was, but it wasn't anyone. We couldn't find anybody, and we called out, "Hey, who's out there?" But there was no voice. We were obviously just speechless at this point. Unsure of what to do, we didn't even bother to see if anyone else was in there. So my friend and I looked around, and we could see there was a big black figure. It was about maybe 8 feet tall or something, but it was more height than an average man. We were obviously really nervous, as we never seen this thing before. My friend Emily thought it was a bear, but thank God it wasn't a bear. But it wasn't a bear, it was something else. We obviously were scared, but we didn't want to make it seem like it was something else. But we decided to have a little bit of a closer look. As we got a bit of a closer look, we saw that there was at least big arms, and it looked at us. It had yellow eyes, and it definitely had a lot of muscle. We were obviously scared, to say the least. We didn't want to go forward or at least fall back, but Emily was able to get a picture of it. And of course that was it, as we definitely have to say right now that we were quite nervous. Now, whatever it was definitely not a bear, but it looked like an ape. It looked at us for a moment as we thought it was walking towards us, but it then turned around and ran into the other direction, not to be seen again. I don't know what this creature was, and neither did Emily, but we were just curious and pretty shocked that we ever saw was a creature we never seen before. We tried to see if we can get anybody to come towards us, or at least we got back to the group, and they asked us where we were, and we said that we had to stop, as Emily had dropped her phone, or at least her camera somewhere. Of course, we didn't really tell them what we actually saw, thinking they might have thought that we were just seeing things. But thank God, we never told anybody about this story, about the fact about what we saw. I don't know what that creature was, but I never saw it since, and I certainly don't ever want to run into it again. So, just to give a little background information, this happened to one of my friends when they were in high school. And in other words, I'm not going to give out this person's name for personal reasons, but we'll just call him Jacob. Jacob was about 14 or 15, and he was kind of a computer geek. He was in high school back in 2015, and he knew a lot about fixing things. He knew about computers, and he was a very smart tech guy, which of course the school depended on him if none of the custodians or any teacher for that matter could figure out the problem with their computer or stuff. And in other words, Jacob had been doing this for a long time, but as of when he got to his sophomore year, he decided to make a career of his own as another level. He was in photography class, and he was going to take some photography of the woods. Now, for the project that he was supposed to do, which was in the fall of 2015, he was told by his teacher to get some photos of the outside of the woods. Now, Jacob was a really indoor kind of guy, but he decided to suck it up and go through a pile of woods. At this point, he didn't know where to look, as some of the woods weren't really that great, or they just weren't inviting, or they were just too complicated for Jacob. When Jacob decided to go to school on Saturday, as there was a forest behind the high school, he said, if I could figure out a way to get into the school, or property at least, I could probably get some fall photos. He snickered with a great amazement, and he took his camera along with some other stuff, and he started walking into the school. Now, he lived not far from the school, so he lived about maybe 5 minutes of a walk, so he was able to walk there without any problems. When he got to the back of the school, he went through the forest and started taking some blue, nice, lovely photos of the fall. Leaves were changing colors from like yellow to orange to red. It was just amazing. As he watched the leaves fall, he began taking pictures of the fall leaves. He even took a few pictures of some deers that were wandering around, but they didn't seem to buy him, but he still took pictures of them. However, he took a picture of what seemed to be a moose or an elk. He couldn't really see what it was, but he took a picture of it. Now, as he was taking a picture, he saw what seemed to be a big black figure. Of course, it looked like what he thought it was maybe a bear, but he was in the woods and didn't recognize him, and he was walking through the trees. He tried to get a picture of it by close-up, but they didn't turn out to be as great. Even though he tried to follow it, he eventually lost it when the figure ended up taking a toll to run in the woods. Now, Jacob was just confused. He didn't know what this was. Thinking that a bear can't do this, he decided to do some other stuff. He ended up deciding to look around more, and he tried to follow the figure, but when he got close to there, he looked and he saw that there was at least there was some clothes and even some school bags. He found what seems to be a phone on the ground, and it looked to be a Samsung. The Samsung had no battery, but thank God he found the charger that was in the bag. So he decided to take it home to see and analyze it, and called the owners of the lost bag. He took the rest of the school stuff back with him. When he got home, he ended up going to his computer since his dad was at work and his mom was going to take his sister to a horseback riding lesson. As Jacob was analyzing what was going on, he ended up analyzing the phone first, but first he had to charge it. After he charged it for a while, he found out the phone's passcode as he realized that it didn't have a passcode. It was a disabled one, so he was able to get into it and was going to call the owners. He looked for the contacts, but it was nobody that he recognized. Then, in other words, he decided to see if there was any videos of what could have happened in the woods. He went to the cameras, and there was like a photo of a young man. He looked to be in his, sophomore to senior year. He ended up looking at them, and he ended up playing one of the videos, and the thumbnail was a part of the forest or whatever it was. He played the video, and it was about him traveling the forest. This guy began vlogging, explaining what was going on and stuff, when all of a sudden, the camera I looked was something black running across the field. He ended up stuttering for a minute, asking what was that, and then as he was running over to see what it was, whatever it was running towards him from behind, and the camera then cuts to what seemed to be the ground, and as he begins running, the screen turned black, and that's when the recording stopped. I didn't even know what it was, but I had a feeling it didn't look like a bear. It looked more like a person. I ended up taking a look at this, and Jacob, who showed it to me, I was pretty shocked. I told him that he needed to go to the principal and show this, so he did. And there were search dogs, helicopters, and etc. down there trying to look for the man who lost the phone, but he didn't find anything. I'm still convinced that it might have been maybe a Sasquatch, as that's what people described it as it was a extinct creature that lived in the woods. I don't know if he's still out there, but I really do pray to God that he's not there. I never saw him when I went down there, thankfully, but I really feel that Jacob who actually looked at this was definitely not kidding around. I know he's a prankster from time to time, but I can definitely assure you he wasn't joking, not even a one bit of it.